She really does.
Yeah. She said the little dirt, like, you know.
Ah, wow. I'm gonna tell it to my wife too. Ah, Ashreinu. Let's sing Reb Nosson's Niggin. I think you guys know this Niggin. I think so. Before we hear from our holy brother. Ashreinu matay chelkeinu umanoim goyralei. 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 We're very, very thankful and privileged to have the schools dafka today. Rebbe Nosson's Yarzeit and Nosson the tables to get super inspired by a big makor of hashra and inspiration for Am Yisrael these days. The Rebbe asked me last night how we know each other. I don't even know. I don't think we ever even met, but I feel very, very close to you.
That's it.
I don't know what it is, but it doesn't matter. It's just the neshama.
I knew you before you knew me. Now you.
Anyway, thank you for being with
Very
us.
nice.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Okay, Shem, thank you guys also to call me Yossi for giving me a ride. Also to Jerry gave us a call. You know, it's how this all happened. If you want to know, blame him. Shem. And together we'll talk a little bit. She was in Dibor Memes. Let's see if we can something what Hashem has for us, what Hashem wants for us. Nachman, he says in Sichos Haran, he warned all of his students one time, and he said to them that Kefira is coming into the world unlike it's ever been seen before. We're going to see atheism. There's going to be, or rather there's going to have an appearance of the fact that Hashem is not in the world. And this is going to spread, and it's going to go out into the world. And many people, he said, many people, even the Bali and Muna, are going to be shooken by what's going to happen. There's going to be a major lacking of Amun in the world. Or Nachman says somewhere else, he says what the anecdote is going to be. What is Hashem going to do in order to fix this problem in the world? He said that Hashem is going to raise up from amongst Klal Yisrael. One place said Tzaddikim, Rav Nosson himself says he's just going to raise up Yidden that are going to go out and they're going to scream only on Amunah. We're shutting down everything else. No more pill pull. We're going to shut down the basement dress. We're only going to scream on Amunah. The Tzaddikim are going to scream on Amunah to the point that their voice is going to be lost. That's going to be their outcome. And he says that even then, there'll be many people that fall. Many people that will fall. It's only just a little bit of people that are going to be able to withstand the test. And he said, like he said, even the Bali, even they're going to be shaken. Even their faith is going to be shaken. His hands are Amunah. In our own generation, in our own lives, we're able to see that a person can wake up every single morning, can go to the mikvah, and go daven by minyan. And after the minyan, he's got a chavrusa. And after that chavrusa, he's got another chavrusa, whatever. whether he's working or he's not working. He could be in the base midrash all day. We'll say this guy's in the base midrash all day. Right? And after that, he's got a shir and this and that, whatever. His back is down, mincha, everything. He's done all the avoda, all the avoda. He goes home and he lays down. And he put his head down and go to sleep. And at the end of the day, we realize that this person didn't think about Hashem one time the whole entire day. Not one time did he think about Hashem. And the area of avoda, what appears to see, he's doing the avoda, but not kesher. Where's the connection? Where's Hashem in this world? He went to sleep. No Hashem. Avoda. So we see this in our own lives. We see this amongst other people. Baruch Hashem. Tonight I had the opportunity to host Bacham. I'm taking the Mir's best. Brisker boys are coming every week, 15 to 20 boys every Shabbos. And they stay till 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning in the summertime. I got to work on it. I got to work on it. Okay, Hashem. But the boys stay up. And we're all night talking about Hashem and the Vekas, and then we go deep in different things. There have been a number of times that these boys have come to me afterwards. Come to me afterwards to say, in the 4 years I've been here in the mirror, I never heard such things. I never heard such things. What's the problem? Because we're all learning. Everybody's learning. Everybody's learning Tova. There's evolved, like we said in the morning. He goes and daven shacharis. What's the problem? Something's missing. Bad, something's missing. It has to be missing. Because the ikka of everything, the Ramchal tells us, is the livable life of the Vekas, being bounded with the Shem. But we can be, like we said, in the area of avoda, but lacking that piece, the main point. And I think the Halaga Reb Nosson come to teach us what's missing, above all things. He's bodiless. Talking to Hashem in your own words. I tell you myself, most people ask me, what was it more than anything that brought you to Yiddishkeit or whatever? I didn't know from anything. I told Hashem just like this. I went out every single day. This is before I even knew the Torahs of Rebbe Nachman. I went out every day, 3 hours at the minimum. I was crying to Hashem. And each day, each week, I would take 3 days. I would fast 3 days in a row, crying out to Hashem, because that was the only way in my mind that I was going to be able to come to the Emes. That was the only way. It was a natural instinct that a person wants truth. A person wants a connection with the Shem. I remember I talked to my Rebbe, Reb Shmuel Brody in Seattle. It's amazing Rav. And after I started learning all the Torahs of Reb Nachman, I don't know if anybody's like me, but I'm like seeing this Indian of his bodiless, and I'm just like going nuts, going crazy. It's just like Reb Nosson. They said on Reb Nosson's story, the first time when Rabbi Nachman revealed to him the Torah of Nun Bet, which Reb Nachman talks about staying up all night and making his bodiless or whatever. But then Reb Nosson's like, I'm running, I'm going to go tell the whole world, you know. Reb Nachman grabs him and tells him, they're not going to listen. They're not going to listen. Interesting thing. So also I shared in this excitement. I went to my Rebbe, Reb Shmuel Brody, and I started talking to him about his bodiless and whatever. I said, I obviously knew he's a mamash Eved Hashem, so there's no way, obviously, he wasn't in touch with this Indian and he's bodiless. And he didn't share my same excitement as I did. You know, he's like sitting there looking at me the whole time. I'm done talking. And he looks at me and he says, Nissim, that's what a Jew does. He talks to Hashem. So that's what a Jew is. Talks to Hashem. There was no excitement. That's the natural thing. That's what a Jew does. If a person wants to go back and forth, and it's more, the Icarus, the Tova, we need to be learning, blah, blah. How did Avraham Avinu find Hashem? He's both of us. Yitzhak Avinu. Yaakov Avinu. Talking to Hashem. Sorry to disappoint anybody. This didn't start with Reb Nachman. This is Judaism 101. Is that we form a connection with Hashem. We talk to Hashem. We pour out our hearts before Hashem. And by doing this, a person comes to Amunah. And towards Zion, Rabbi Nachman tells us that Tefillah is the Bechina of Amunah, the Bechina of Eretz Yisrael, Bechina of Nissim. It's not a plug. But this is how we're able to see Hashem in this world. And when Nachman talks about a time when faith would be fallen faith would happen to the Jewish people. And trust me, as a person who's been in the Christian world and everything, these guys are not all Machshava. They see things, they see crazy things that happen, whatever. It's a misguided light. Rebbe Nachman says that all the other religions and avodah zarah that there is in the world, they don't have gilui. That's the main difference between them and Klal Yisrael, is that the difference is by them that they're receiving, they're pulling. Everything has to have chiyus from Hashem, so they're pulling chiyus from Hashem. So they're pulling from the tzimtzum in a place where Hashem is not actually, it's not so apparent, but they're pulling from a place. They're receiving chiyus from Hashem. But by Klal Yisrael, we have gilui. We had Har Sinai. We had gilui. It's the biggest difference. But to believe that these guys, all of them, just some sugar, they didn't see crazy things, and they don't get the chance to experience Hashem, it's not true. One thing by them, faith. It's big. Amunah. They believe. Even if it's garbage, they believe. And as a result of the belief, they feel still a connection, kesher to Hashem. There's not a day that doesn't go by. Then I'm on the road and I'm talking to another young boy who's been in the yeshiva system his whole entire life. I don't feel connected. I don't feel kesher. I don't feel. How you know Hashem really exists? How He's asking me these questions. It's top in the shit. He's asking me how do I know if Hashem really exists? How can it be? Because the moon is falling. The moon is falling. People are not taking it on themselves to go and talk their shit. And it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing that we could be in a world, like I said, with so many different things to do. Hashem revealed to us so many different different ideas and everything. And everybody wants to do the most. You see a person wants to start coming close to Hashem. First thing, he takes on everything hard. He's going to go to the Shulchan Aruch and he's going to do everything else, but he didn't form a connection with Hashem. How do we get there? So the Ikar is boldness. Rebbe Nachman says, actually this Torah, I think Torah Zion was, I think these are actual Rebbe Nachman's words. Don't quote me on it, but I think it is. Rebbe Nachman tells us that the main ingredient for even his boldness to work, to be able to start to see Hashem in our world and in our lives, is that a person has to have emunah that Hashem is a mechadesh, that he could create all new phenomena whenever he wants, and at any time he wants. We're not stuck in a place of thinking that I have to be this way, things have to go this way, or whatever the case is. But we have to believe that Hashem is a mechadesh, that at any time he can do it. And this is the koach of every single yid. He has this koach. And this is the koach that Rebbe Nachman says is the koach of Avraham Avinu. To be ha'ivri, to stand on one side when the rest of the world is on a completely different side. So when Rebbe Nachman tells us that a time is coming when kafir is going to be in the world at an all-time high, and people are going to be falling from the faith, the main ingredient is this koach of Avraham Avinu. Can anybody imagine Avraham Avinu? That he had to feel at times that he was crazy. He had to feel at times that he was mashugah, that the rest of the world was holding in one place and he was holding in different. Many people telling him, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, wrong. He had to come to a place that he had to say to himself that I'm right and everybody else is wrong. Don't try this in your house with your wife. Not going to get you anywhere. But because this is Avraham Avinu, that I'm right and the rest of the world is wrong. And this is the call that every single yid has. This is what Avraham Avinu brought into the world. He revealed faith. He brought faith into the world. This is the call of Avraham Avinu. I'm right and everybody else is wrong. So as Avraham Avinu stands on one side and the rest of the world is on one side, he's first going to say to himself, this is great. I can go and strengthen my emunah. And now I know that the ikar is, and what maybe the ingredient is, maybe the missing is that he's bold at this. Maybe I haven't been talking to Hashem enough. I haven't been spending enough time or whatever thing. I still don't see, really, in the end, how this is going to make a big effect, make a big effect on me and the rest of the life. So I'll often illustrate this beautiful story. Rav Nachman, I remember when I seen the words and just all the hagashas that I had at the time when he said to Hashem like he was your best friend. He said, go out, speak to Hashem like he's your best friend. And made me realize something. If you take two good friends, best friends, whatever, and you stick them together, and they're with each other every single day, they're talking every day, and all that, anybody knows that over time what starts to happen is they begin to develop the same interests, same likes. And it may be that, over time they start to use the same jargon, slang words, whatever it is, they become almost inseparable people. They become very much so like each other. And some people, honestly, I've seen this a lot also too, they spend a lot of time with their pets. They start looking like their dogs, and it's a very weird thing, phenomenon going on. Have ever seen a human who looks like his dog? It happens. Spend a lot of time. So after a while of being, I've seen this also by my wife and my sister-in-law, the sisters, whatever, they're also best friends, for a while. It was very hard to tell them apart on the phone. So a person can only imagine that if he goes and he enters into a place, he creates a makom for Hashem, and he enters into that place of his bodedus, looking for the vagus and in connection with Hashem, that there's no doubt about it, that the person will become more like Hashem. Sorry to tell you, you will not have a power of influence on Hashem. It would be the opposite way around. And as Hashem begins to influence a person's life, more and more and more and more, a person will come to love what Hashem loves. He will come to hate what Hashem hates. He will come to reward what He rewards, and he will come to hate or reject the things that Hashem rejects. So whenever a person finds himself going in that path of avoda, and he looks up and he sees that, back at this point when I was very, really strong in my emunah and I was really working on it, I wouldn't have made such a decision. A person can only catch himself in those instances if he's involved in checking on himself. If he's involved in checking in with Hashem. This is Hibodedus. This is Hibodedu. And the person goes back in to check on himself. And he goes back in to strengthen himself in the Emunah. And then from then, the other call of Avram Avinu is, how do we spread this to our brothers? How do we bring other people and give them faith? Because one of the biggest struggles that you have when a person hits that place and he's on fire for Hashem and he wants to give it over to the next person, right? Nachman already tells us that a person can't even relate. As this a saga grows in Hashem, he can't relate to himself even what he felt the day before. So let alone to be able to give it over to somebody else. He can't give it over to somebody else. Another thing, you can't give over your ratzon. I have a ratzon for Hashem. I want to serve Hashem so bad, but I can't give it over to the next person. And 9 times out of 10, even if I say the most thought-provoking thing, or if I said the one thing that floored everybody, at the end of the day, I can't make anybody implement anything when they go back home. So what can I do? If anybody is osek at all on breast lip Seforim, and mainly the Seforim of Rav Nosson, who I think come down to earth a little bit more, Rav Nachman's in a high place already, and Rav Nosson brings out Rav Nachman. One of the things, if a person ever looks at the Aish coming off of the page when Rav Nosson is writing, and what love he's writing for Klal Yisrael, he has this it's a love coming out of it. And I think, anybody that was there by Rav Weinberger last night, he mentioned that the fact that he's able to reveal the Rahmanas of Hashem into the world. It's an amazing thing. It's called. And Chok Ve'or, it's at least my teretz. And Chok Ve'or, Rav Avraham ben Rav Nachman says a beautiful thing. He's writing on different stories, different tzaddikim that were close to Rebbe Nachman. And Rav Nosson is the star of everybody. He gets two sections. In the second section, when he wrote on Rav Nosson, he said, over singing Rav Nosson, he would tell us, he said that Ani Ma'amin, I believe, B'emunah Shlema, that every single Yid wants to serve Hashem. Every Yid wants to be close to Hashem. And he said that even if he's saying something differently, even if his body is going in a different direction, I believe, with B'emunah Shlema, that every single Yid wants to serve Hashem. Now, if a person believes that with his own heart, right, and with his whole entire will, his whole being, this becomes the essence who that person is. Another thing Rav Nosson says over there, he said that I can plead the case for any Yid. I can go walk into his base din, the Shemayim, and I can get him off. He said that's how much I know the generation, and I know what each person, with his Nissan is and what his test is. I know what each person is. I can go and get him off the case. This is Rav Nosson. This is who he is. So can you imagine being in such a presence of such a person? That he believes that you want to serve Hashem more than you do. More than you believe in yourself, he believes that you want to serve Hashem. Trust me, I've had the opportunity to be in the presence of tzaddikim. I'm sure all of you have also. It's a difference. It's a big difference. They're hanging around the guys, drinking a beer, hanging out in front of the barbecue, whatever the case is, whatever each one does with their own time. It's a big difference. When you're around a person that the whole essence of the whole being is Ani Ma'amim, Emunah Shleim. That you want to serve Hashem. I believe it more than you. Such an attitude and such a person, the whole aura of that person becomes so not only attractive, but it spills out, it pours out of the person's being. And automatically any person who goes around that person ends up believing that they want to serve Hashem. I sat with a group of boys in Beit Shemesh. Each one of them were dealing with their own testaments, whatever, you know. So it's always interesting for me because I come from the other world and I came from the other life to like see young Jewish boys sagging and trying to be gangsters and different things. Like, it's hilarious. The most funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's like a saying. I'm not saying they don't really have things, but I came from an area where like, come on, dude, are you serious? So that's because it happens. So I remember I'm walking and I go and talk to these boys, you know. Maybe 2 hours I'm spending with these boys, almost, I don't know, maybe it could have been almost 2 hours I'm talking to these boys. And I'm giving them stuff, you know, complete stories like that I went through, but like I'm giving them the whole everything. I talked to them at the end. And each one, they thought they were all cool, whatever, you know. As the time goes down, all the posture drops, you know. So I'm sharing all my war stories and everything else. And at the end of it all, I felt such fire in my heart also too. And I believed it. I still believe it. I told them, I said that you guys are the biggest neshamas. Chas v'shalom that someone should tell you that you're the rejects. You can't sit down and learn 12 hours like the rest of all the other guys. Because you have this test, you have that test. I said, each one of you have yours. You're not gangsters. Sorry. Right? But what lies underneath everything else, what's underneath the surface, is a heart that yearns and craves Hashem. And I said to all these guys, how much tears start to come out of these boys' eyes? Because inside, they really feel that. The truth is that underneath all the layers and all the shtelt and everything else, each one knows inside that the truth is, I just want to give Hashem nachas. And I want to make him happy. And I want to have a type of emunah and a relationship with Hashem that's tangible, that I can feel. Because they're saying, I know it's a mahalik, but me personally, there's been plenty of times I told Hashem, I need to feel you. Because Hashem, I need to feel that I have siyata d'shmaya when I'm going into this place, or I have to go talk at this place, or I need to go and perform in front of these people. How do I know Hashem that you're with me? Hashem, I want to know. I want to feel you when I put on my tefillin in the morning. I want to feel you when I'm davening. There's nothing wrong with telling Hashem that you want him there. There's nothing wrong with telling Hashem there. It becomes more apparent to a person that Hashem is in the world when he's oseh and going to meet Hashem. He engages Hashem in conversation. And you'll hear him talk back, maybe not audibly, maybe whatever. We have places where people that hear Hashem audibly in this place, you know. But there's a big difference. I want to share one of the stories that happened to me. And this also too is maybe my connection to Breslov, also to Reb Nachman. When people ask me the story, I haven't told too many people the story. The story involves President Obama even a little bit. What zechus he has? None. Anyway, I was in the process of the Geras. The first thing that that hit me, the first thing that tried to throw me off a little bit was, if anybody has ever had this experience and you're making tshuva, whatever, in most cases at least, there's always one partner moving faster than the other. I mean, I've been with my wife since I was 17, Baruch Hashem. So we've gone through, we've gone through this whole entire journey together, Baruch Hashem, to both be here in Yerushalayim and have children, Baruch Hashem. So at one point for sure, I was going at 100 miles per hour. My wife was going at about, 30, you know what I'm saying, maybe 30. She's on the residential streets, the open freeway. And for whatever reason, it was just like no way to get things up, and I went to push and then to say different things. And I remember I went to my Rebbe before I even got close to Rav Shmuel Brody in Seattle, and I asked him, I told him this is where I was holding, and his eitzah was for me. He says that for you, Hashem is showing you emes, you're an emes, you know, your gimel midos. He said, but for your wife, it's erech apayim. I said to him, shkoyach. What do I do with that? I need to know. He's patient and he's long suffering my wife, but with me, showing emes, I'm going 100%. So what do I do? So it was almost. I think this was right after Rosh Hashanah. I had this conversation with him, and by Sukkot Hashem brought Gilui. Someone handed to me the book, The Garden of Peace, by Rav Arush, and I started reading this book. And I tell you that, it was like voodoo, this book. It was like everything I said and everything I did that I went along with it. My wife was like turning into a whole new person. It was like crazy what was happening in my home. And one of the things that Rav Shalom says really about this book is that, it's not a marriage guide. It's a book on the Avodas Hashem. It brings a person to really understand what it means to be bittul. This is much more than just being bittul to his wife. Ultimately, a person, if you can't do this, it's very, very hard for a person who rejects such inyanim to be able to come to bittul to Hashem also. So this book became like my soundtrack for life, and I'm reading this book or whatever. And every day I'm going out, doing an hour. He's doing this only on Shalom Bayit, nothing else. Talking to Hashem only on Shalom Bayit. This is it. And I start to see this major transformation happen to my wife. So another person came to me. My good friend, Rick Eskenazi. If anybody watches any of my clips, Uncle Rick, he usually makes an appearance somewhere. He's like my Where's Waldo, my Albert Hitchcock. He shows up in all the whatever. Book of Shem, now he's been joining me on tour or whatever. He's become a big celebrity, Uncle Rick. So Uncle Rick, he handed me this book, The Garden of Amunah, afterwards. And then he handed me In Forest Fields or whatever. So now I'm just, Rav Shalom'd up. You know what I mean? I got all the books or whatever. And then shortly after this, Rav Lazer Brody comes to Seattle. So I meet Rav Lazer Brody, and there's an instant kesher. We make an instant kesher, and he made sure that I kept in touch with him afterwards. Whatever, gave me his information, and we kept in touch. And things are going through, the process of going through, and then finally I end up having to go to New York for some reason. I had maybe a gig over there, and at the same time that I was going there, Rav Arush was always also going to be there for the first time. He was going to speak in New York. And so I went there, and I went to go meet with him and Rav Arush while I was there. And we danced or whatever, nothing private. I just got to have the experience. And then the next week, I was off to Eretz Yisrael. When I got to Eretz Yisrael was when I spent more time by the yeshiva, whatever. And so up until this point, all the books, everything I had gone through was, mainly Rav Arush's books. Now he's adding more and more books, whatever. And at the end of my trip, after leaving, I left Rav Arush's house. He had us from a love of Malka, just me and my brother and another friend of mine. And then we left out, and when I got back to the hotel or the room I was staying in, checked my email, and I had an invite from the White House. I'm looking at the email, and it says the President First Lady invite you. It's a Hanukkah party they do every year, and an invite from the White House. So I'm looking at it now. The first thing I thought was this is a joke, it's a prank, because 5 minutes earlier, my brother-in-law just played a prank on me, He texted me from some unmarked number, told me, his kids are running around the house, dressed in, they paint themselves black, and they're rapping, and, it was a complete joke, after this text. So, and then like 5 minutes later, I got an email from the White House. So I'm thinking, this guy doesn't stop, So whatever, I called the number that they gave me, nobody answered, so I thought, okay, whatever, here it goes. And then all of a sudden I get a call back from the White House and whatever, they made the reservations or whatever. And so I immediately called a friend of mine that was at the yeshiva. I said, you have to ask Rav Arush, what do I do? I just got invited to the White House. I'm not so fond of the guy in office, whatever. But I'm gonna go. Not that I care so much for politics, but a Rosh is a Rosh. You see when you see. So anyway. So he calls Rav Arush, and then he calls me back, and he says Rav Arush says you have to do Hafatzah. There's the Garden of Amunah. You got to go to Barack Obama, the Garden of Amunah. So I'm thinking, out of all the things that I'm waiting on, maybe he's going to tell me don't go. It's such a place that don't go. He said no, you got to go do Hafatzah. And at this time, I didn't even have the Garden of Amunah, the universal one that he made for, for the non-Jewish heaven. I didn't have it. So I'm thinking, like, how am I going to do it? Whatever. And the next week, I had to be in L.A. And when I was in L.A., Lazy Brody arranged for me to be able to pick up this other Garden of Amunah, right? So I get on the plane, I go there, and I remember I didn't even tell the people there before I got there. I didn't even tell them that I was coming. They just, like, I put on Facebook or something, we're coming to D.C. or whatever, and somebody said you can stay with me. And I don't even think, I called them at like 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that after I got into Baltimore. It's still possibly, it was horrible. I just go to these people's house. They're very, very nice, very, very nice. But they weren't making the Suda on Friday night, so because they work, and they're working late, so they're going out Friday night or whatever, they were having a small thing. So they said, but the daytime I get you by them. So I called my Rebbe Shlomo Brody back in Seattle. I called him and asked him if there was a place that I could go to. He was from Silver Springs. I said, is there a place we could go to? And he said, I'm going to call you back. So time is waiting. It's going down. Looking at the clock. And the friend that I had with me, he had like maybe Shoshana and cellulitis on his foot or whatever, so he couldn't really walk that well. And so I'm thinking like, all right, we just, when in doubt, call Chabad, right? I got the phone, called the nearest Chabad house I could find. And I called them and told them, I said, we needed a place to come and stay. Come to eat the Suda Friday night. So they said, of course, you could come. And immediately after I hung up the phone, my Rebbe called me back. And I said to him, oh, no need, Rebbe. I actually found a place. The phone got silent. It's like dead silent. And he goes, Nissim, don't do this to me. And I'm like, okay. So he tells me he had another place for us to go that was, whatever. And he gave me the address. So I told him, I said, here's the deal. This guy's foot's jacked up. So whichever place is closer, that's where we're going to go. So after doing the, Google Maps or whatever, seeing which place is closer, it turned out that the place that my Rebbe told me was much closer. So we ended up going to this place. It was like a shtibul, a lot of Islam. It was very nice. In this basement, Rabbi Chin. I don't know if anybody's ever had that. He's an amazing minion. I don't know if they're throughout the week, but at least on Shabbos they have a minion. So go into his basement or whatever, and I'm there. And before I left, there's one interesting one. Before I left, somebody gave me on the paper Hit Kashrut, the Hit Kashrut prayer that we say before the Tikkun HaKlali. A lot of breast lovers say before any tefillah. Rabbi Schultz, say they bind themselves to the tzaddik, especially not whatever. So I had them write it out for me, whatever in English. They wrote it out in English for me, for me. But I would never say this. I just couldn't bring it up. I came from Christianity. This is touching too much of the same. I'm not doing it. All right? But Baruch Hashem, this is a good thing. So I'm here. They daven inside the minyan. I think we daven earlier also too because we were worried about the time. So it's already mental people are there. So just quiet. And I grabbed the book off one of Rav Kramer's book, Seventh Heaven. So I started going through this book a little bit. Hashem is amazing book. And all of a sudden, this guy, he's next to me. I didn't look at him. He goes, psst, it's quiet. We're in a basement. Right? You can imagine, a regular basement, not huge. And he goes, psst. I can't talk. If I say something, and I go, And he goes, is that your book? And I go, Where'd you get it? I point to the shelf, and he goes, oh. So it's quiet. He goes, psst. I said, oh, this guy, whatever, Listen, it's already bad enough, most of the time we go to the minyan and show up, I'm the only black guy there, And then all of a sudden you're going to start talking too and disrupt everybody's feel. Come on. All the strikes, So he goes, psst. And I go, He goes, are you Nissim? And I go, come on, not even that one, I go, And he says to me, I'm Laser Brody's brother. And I look at him. He looks just like Laser Brody. Right? This is a strange woman or whatever. Name's Zev Zalman. And we start talk. I just hugged him. I didn't know who he was, but whatever. I got very close to Rabbi Laser Brody. Obviously, I read all the Sephora, he translated English, what I mean? So I hugged him. And he said to me afterwards, this is how really the hit I came from now. So after tefillah was done or whatever, he said, every day I learn Lakutei Moharan. I sit down after davening and I learn Lakutei Moharan. And he said, so I'm going to learn. Would you like to learn with me? I said, of course, whatever. Now obviously know Reb Nachman because I'm all in Rav Arish's form. He's quoting him every 5 seconds or whatever. And I know about Breslov, whatever. I know it. I know it's an Indian, but I didn't really know Reb Nachman. So the Torah that he sits down with me to learn, and right where he's up to, Torah Gimel. Torah Gimel talks about Nagina, talks about music, talks about a kosher musician and all the whatever. So we start going through this Torah, and I'm just like on fire reading this Torah. You know what I mean? Because this is giving like the background to everything, how to be a kosher musician and everything like that. So I remember after this, and then Shabbos had ended or whatever, and I went out to go talk to Hashem, and the first time I said the Hit Kashrut, I said it over in English. I'm telling you, I was in the fields 2 hours in the snow, it was freezing cold, didn't feel it at all. I had Aish fire running through my body. In the end, Obama did get the book, whatever. The whole story that is still not such a big thing, but he did end up getting the book. I remember after coming back home, I kept up with the Zizi Zeb Zalman over the whole course of that year. We had been in touch or whatever, and they've been really telling me, you got to get to Uman, you got to come to Uman for Shoshana, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So in the end, I finally got Rashid from my wife like the day before. I don't know if anybody's ever had that experience, but it was like the day before, and I went, and why? I brought back so much age. And my wife, I remember after I got back, and her just seeing what happened to me, like, that major experience I had. I came back. She said to me, is this, are we wrestlers? I said, yeah, we're wrestling. One of the things that, out of the whole entire thing that for me was the fact that, we go back to this topic of Emunah, to tell you the story, show you how I got to Reb Nachman. But the biggest difference for me when I started going through this form of Reb Nachman, was the fact that, my whole life I had heard from, and this is tough love, you could call it what it is, but growing up in my neighborhood and with the parents and the situation I spent a lot of my life being torn down. You ain't gonna be this, you ain't gonna be that, your mother has this, you that, you be, you blah, blah, blah. So I talked to him as a kid. This is just what type of business that, that we're in over there. So they talk to the kids. So I hadn't realized until I started reading the Seforim of Reb Nachman, Ishtabchut HaNefesh, Yeshiva Nefesh, really gave me Yeshiva's Nefesh. To be able to see such a tzaddik that believes so much in me, he didn't own me. There's a few times that Rabbeinu uses the lashon, a person maybe think I'm not talking to such a low person, and he said, but yes, even you can explore the heights and achieve the greatest connection, forge the greatest connection to Hashem. More than you can possibly imagine, you can achieve it. You can achieve the highest levels of Avodas Hashem. A simple person like you. And you don't have to be a major Tamakov. Like I said, the base midrash is full. It's packed. For learning all day long. Doesn't mean that they have a kesher to Hashem, unfortunately. Doesn't mean. So the ikr is to return back to that place of his boldness, to return back to being simple. Reb Nachman said on himself, he said, major Tamakov. He said, but all of my chokmah and everything that I have never got me anywhere. He said, it never brought me close to Hashem. Reb Nachman saying on himself, he said, it never brought me close to Hashem. He said, what brought me to Hashem was speaking to Hashem in my own words, saying Tehillim, fetching to Hashem. This is what brought me close to Hashem. Wasn't my fault. And to be able to know the such tzaddikim in the world, the seforim in the world, that are able to give a person a serious Machshava nefesh, bring a person back to life, and build a person up from nothing. And when each one of us take it upon ourselves in the same way, to be able to make a declaration, to feel it, every single year wants to serve Hashem. And this this light that comes out from such belief and such faith should affect all of Klal Yisrael. So the Hashem's help will give us a bracha, all of us, that we should be able to have a munah shlema, that we should be able to have true bitachon. Another thing is, I'm so sorry, I want to touch on this topic, of being able to know when to be Moser Nefesh. No one can tell us when to be Moser Nefesh. No one can tell us when a person needs to make a big leap of faith. He needs to rely on his No one can really tell you. Even Rebbeim and Tzaddikim that have leaped bounds in this, they still can't tell another person. This also comes from a person being devoted and talking to Hashem and understanding with clarity. So also with that Hashem should give us strength to be able to know when to be Nosson. We have Amunah Shlema, and as a result of our Amunah and our B'tachon and ourselves and our relationship with Hashem, it should spread to all the rest of life.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. Ashreinu, thank you. First of many Bezrat Hashem.
Yeah, Bezrat
Please,
Hashem.
God, you gotta come for Shabbos.
I gotta come for Shabbos. You guys can host all of us?
How many?
I can see. You guys don't have Yerushalayim houses, so I think you could fit a few people inside. You're more than just the family.
Just, where do you live now?
I live on Strauss, Rehov Strauss, I'm right in the heart of everything.
Your family.
Everyone's busy. Thank you guys so much.
Yofi, shukayach. Thank you, Nissim. Thanks, Rebbe, for coming. Shukayach.
Thank you.
One more nigga?
What was up for Shlomo?
One more nigga. All right.
Okay, I gotta sit for another one.
One more nigga. Huh? Which one? Oh, Anapoli. Okay. This nigga, yeah, Anapoli. We were, a bunch of us were just in, we went to the Rebbe, actually. We do every year we do Baal Shem Tov Mizrich. We went to the Maggid of Mizrich and the Zush of Anapoli. We're buried next to each other in Anapoli. But I'm a Kohen, so I had to stay outside.
Right.
It was pouring. You held, Elliot, it was you held, I
gave you the umbrella, someone else held it.
Oh, okay, you gave me an umbrella. I had a guitar. I hear the Chevra davening so strong inside. It was the only time I got a little bit of like a, why am I crying, you know? Anyway, but a niggun came down, so we've been singing it aloud.
Do we down?